Now we're going to take a little time for some memories. I was instructed that this is how I'm to announce him. This is Grant Shaffer, Gladys' favorite grandson. Grant.
Thank you. Grandma to me meant a lot. With all the family gatherings, the playing in the yard, and all the cats that seemed to come around. It was fun as a child to see so many cats and play with them. But one thing it made me think of when reflecting on my grandmother was, and my kids right now are about the age when I used to play with her. And my son would refer to her as Big Grandma. I think it was really because he had a hard time saying great. So we started calling her Big Grandma. And I thought that was a good representation of her. She had a very big heart, a lot to give, and was always there for others. She was a very loving, caring, and thoughtful woman. And here are some of the thoughts and memories from friends and family. From Alicia, there were so many wonderful things about Aunt Gladys. From her bringing me Arby's when I forgot my lunch at school and picking me up when I got sick until my mother could come home. She was always there to help. She came to my grandparents' day at school and my programs and anything else she could come to. Aunt Gladys was a woman of faith. She loved the Lord with all her heart. She had peace knowing that she will spend eternity with her Heavenly Father. She will be greatly missed, but I know that I will see her again someday, and I'm grateful for that. From Betty Weir. I remember when Aunt Gladys surprised me one day at the farm. She came out and asked if we could go horseback riding with me. I was surprised and happy at the same time. We went riding over by the gravel pit that used to be called the Hog's Back. I had her ride my Arab mare called Lady, and I'd hoped she'd behave like a lady for my Aunt Gladys. She tried a trot, and she did great. I then asked if she'd like to canter, and she was all for it. She did a wonderful job, and nothing rattled her. She loved riding the horse. I was surprised at how well she could ride. Apparently the farm girl was still in there somewhere. She enjoyed riding and handling her with no difficulty at all, like she had put in a lot of hours on horseback at some time in her life. What a pleasant treat it was to share that riding experience with her. From Crystal. Alicia and I were at Aunt Gladys' house years ago. There were some teenage boys playing basketball there. She asked us to play with the boys so we wouldn't be underfoot when she was trying to clean. The boys, of course, were not interested in playing with us. She went out there to tell them to join us. They then went inside so they wouldn't have to play with us. Gladys did not go back inside to do her work. She stayed outside with us and attempted to shoot some hoops. This memory has stayed with me all these years because it was so kind and thoughtful of her. It was something that she felt out of place trying and was insecure about it, but she did it to make us feel good and not feel bad that the boys wouldn't play with us. This has been a very treasured memory for me with Aunt Gladys. From John and Becky Manning. Her smile was always there to make the day brighter. Her positive attitude always encouraged others, and her ever-present testimony of her love for Christ and his love for us. I do not remember one time when there was an opportunity for testimonies and service that Gladys did not share her faith and hope. From Faith Christenson, what an incredible person Gladys was. She was creative and joyful. Everything she did was a reflection of her deep faith in God. She was my favorite aunt, and I'll miss her. From Phil and Debbie Monson. Debbie commented, I always enjoyed Gladys. She always had a smile and was so friendly and easy to talk to. She always made me feel welcome and special at church, like she was just waiting for you to walk in so that she could talk to you. She was so hospitable. She had a bunch of us over to her house one time, and she was just so relaxed with a bunch of people sitting around. She was such a classy lady also. I always thought how cool it would be to be like her because she always looked so put together and her jewelry was so pretty. She always sat up so straight in the chair also. And Phil commented that he remembers her smile and how happy she always seemed. From Faith Dullum. Gladys was always in a kindly attitude, and when things didn't go well somehow, she was still chipper and always took the high road. I don't think I ever heard her say a bad word about anyone. That just wasn't her way. She was gentle, kind, caring, and put God first no matter what. I loved her. From Russell Rice. I remember Aunt Gladys coming out to California to visit us. She made a huge impression on me as a young kid on that visit. She was so sweet, kind, funny, and gracious to us kids the first time we met her. Then we went to visit her and stay with her a few days in Wisconsin a few years later. I remember her house being magical. It was set in the woods, and it was wintertime. And for me as a kid growing up in Los Angeles, it seemed like something out of a movie. Aunt Gladys was again the perfect host, making us a tremendous breakfast each morning and treating us extra special. I always looked at Aunt Gladys as a Mary Poppins character in our childhood. She was always a warm and caring person, even to us little kids. Thankful for her impact as a young boy. From Martha Jane Heavenlin Ling. Gladys was so special. I remember how she opened her home so often to teen gatherings when we were all living in Wisconsin. I don't know that I ever heard an upset word from her lips. She was always cheerful and kind. From Dorothy Nelson. Beautiful sister in the Lord, she will be missed. I pray for peace and comfort for her family. From Priscilla Monson. I remember her fondly when she used to come to church in Woodville in the Lion's Den. She would always compliment my piano playing and said she wanted me to play at her funeral. With as bad as that piano was, I was never quite sure what to think. Also, she would have heard many different people play, so I always thanked her graciously and felt honored by her compliment. From Pan Madison. I remember visiting and having lunch with Gladys after church. She was such a sweet and special lady. I will always cherish moments spent with her. From Jana Jack Christenson. We are headed to Wisconsin to celebrate life with Mom Christenson, a woman who loved God with all her heart and taught us many others to do the same. She will be missed, but we will be together for eternity, and I'm sure she will be in charge of all the potlucks. From Gladys McCoy. Aunt Gladys was my namesake, and I loved her for as long as I can remember. She was a very close to mother, and always spent time with us. What a blessing she was to all of us. I loved her so. She was always upbeat and happy to make She was always upbeat and happy and made us have fun when she was with us. From Karen Brunson. Our love to the family. She was a very special lady, and I always admired her. From Dave Brunson. Gladys was a very special lady. Prayers go out to Jack, Carol, and the families. From Joyce Wilfong. I heard a comment one time that said, "I can't believe how short of a time it took to get old." It is hard to condense a memory of someone you have literally all your life. Gladys was that person I said when and if I grow up, I want to be just like her. She was smiling, happy, funny, godly, content, and a great wisdom of prayer warrior, frugal, supported the Lord's work. And her home was always open to you and was the perfect hostess. She had to feed you or 10 people if they dropped in. She didn't care if you were rich or poor. She loved and treated you good and prayed for you often. Our kids loved Aunt Gladys for who she was. She earned their love in everything she did. I was always proud and honored to be a Weir. Because of being related to Gladys and her siblings, Otis, Helen, Ethel, Jewel, and Charlotte, and for what they stood for. I miss her influence in my life. From Carol Shaffer. I remember my mom's sense of adventure and love for life. Growing up, I always knew how much she loved me, and my childhood was wonderful. Mom could turn an ordinary day into an adventure by packing a lunch and heading to the nearby woods to hike and explore together. She was never busy if I needed her. I remember once, when Grant was a toddler, I woke up with a migraine headache and didn't have anyone to help me. I called Mom, and she was at our home in what seemed in less time than normal to drive from Chippewa Falls to Hudson. She was usually careful to watch all the speed limits, but that day, I'm not so sure. Mom was always ready to laugh and enjoyed the moment she was in. She thought the best of other people and didn't take offense easily. She never complained, was always thankful, and trusted in God in everything. I'm so blessed to have had her in my life for so many years and will hold on to all the memories. Goodbye, Grandma.